What's up, squad? It's Brandon from the band Tucson. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I recently received a lot of comments regarding one of my videos, not so favorable, of course, talking about how I was relatively underwhelmed by these VP picks. And I think it goes fair to say they're VP picks for a reason, first of all. But no one's going to convince me that Governor Walz and Congressman Vance were the best candidates for these two presidential nominees. So I look back at the politics of the past and winning combinations. And usually you're going to be the leader. The president contender will be the leader with salt in their veins, more aged, more experienced, wise, and gritty. And then that VP will be someone youthful, knowledgeable, up and coming, energetic, tons of ideas to balance out that presidential ticket. Conversely, you look at someone such as Barack Obama. Well, he was a young, youthful guy, and he brought in an older, wiser, more experienced, what is now President Joe Biden, back then VP Biden. So I think that formula works because, yeah, you want to cover states. Yeah, you want a leader that can basically deliver through the bureaucracy. But and these are two Midwestern VP candidates. Of course, everybody wants the battleground states in the Midwest, but really, you want to win. And if you got people, or if you have someone that can help get the votes out, that is the battle to be won. So I don't care who Barack Obama VP candidate was. I think VP Biden was a great pick given President Obama's standing at that time. But people really wanted to vote for him. And the same thing happened when President Trump was first elected in 2016. He really energized a certain demographic base that really wanted to support him. And nobody's going to convince me on the Democrat side where you have VP Harris running for president, and there's so many strong candidates out there with great ideas that can contribute to the ticket, bring a little pragmatism, hardcore edge to kind of soften Kamala, what some would say is relatively distant personality. She's a very warm person, but I think she gets caught up in playing the part. So somebody to balance it out, a little bit more paper, because she has a lot of personality. So she'll be the color. Somebody is a little bit more plain paper to come in, a little bit more dull, a technocrat, sort of speak, to balance her out. I think that would have been great because you would have saw, okay, you have the warmth, you have the experience, but you also have somebody behind there that can push through legislation and understand how things get done and can get in the weeds while she's being the leader. And the same thing with Trump. Nobody's going to convince me that his base is enthusiastic about a never Trumper. Before his VP pick, with the shooting and the surviving of the assassination attempt, I thought this was going to be a cakewalk. After his VP pick, when he's picking a number Trumper, because you have to say, if he doesn't believe in his message, if he isn't faithful to his message, why would his followers be? If you're Trump 2016, you think Trump got robbed in 2020, like the establishment was the enemy in 2016, and they proved to be the enemy in 2020 in their mind. Why would you go somebody that sided with the establishment? That, to me, I think it put a little water. It dampened the fervor of his campaign. But we'll see when the election rolls around. So I made a whole video on that, but I just want to reiterate that for you can understand my point of view. And the second thing I wanted to address in this is these people when they talk, because I do try to distance myself from politics, because politics is big boy game. It's a dangerous game, and I don't think 99% of people know what the hell they're talking about when they're talking about politics. Because unless you're in the room where it happens, as per the Hamilton play, unless you're in a room that happens, everything you hear is hearsay. Everything you hear has been filtered down to you. So many people have all these opinions. They really don't know what's going on. They think they're way more included than they actually are. They think they're a lot more free than they actually are. And that's the fundamental flaw, I think, is when I talk to somebody, when you debate, there's two types of debates, right? One is a debate of exploration. I used to engage in this a lot when I was younger, developing my ideas, primarily around economics, free markets versus, or market economies versus socialism. And, you would have these debates, and a lot of the debates was really me listening, me trying to understand, not coming in with heavy opinions, because truthfully, I didn't really understand. I thought I understood, and I thought that the government can just come in and control things, say, okay, we raised the minimum wage, and everybody, like a magic wand, everybody's standard of living will be lifted. But as I learned through these open discussion, these explorational conversation, that is not how the world works. And it will actually, government imposition, a lot of times have the adverse consequences from what is intended. Prime example, minimum wage. I use minimum wage as my favorite one because that's what stopped me in my tracks and made me say, hold up, let me rethink things here. And when I give this example to other people, you can see the wheels start to turn when they start to understand how the minimum wage actually is a punitive exercise to the lower classes, to the worker classes, to the least connected, and to the least experienced. It rips that opportunity away from them. So this is the role of the individual. I can appreciate a conversation of exploration. Why do you think that? Tell me. I like to see that point of view. Then I can contrast that with what I know, and I can decide myself which one I'm more aligned with. Because it really is no right or wrong answer. It's how you want to live. Some people were happy behind the Iron Curtain. They enjoyed that lifestyle. They enjoyed the control. And many weren't. So I don't want to make it seem like one size fits all. Yes, there's probably a prevailing truth, of course. If you're talking about economic development, there's really no argument. But even then, with economic development, it's not complete anarchy. There are controlled markets, an established bureaucracy, sets of rules, legal framework. These things are required, and each one of these things restricts freedom. So there are different levels of freedom. There is not uninhibited freedom. And you have to understand that. And I understand that I exist within a paradigm. And being an American, I think we probably have established one of the most liberal societies one can have as far as political thought, economic liberalization. As you can see, Europe's falling apart over there, which was supposed to be the competition. Africa and Asia has no intention. They have no loyalty, no fidelity to liberalism. And Latin America is working its way out of it with Latin America doing what Latin America does. So America has put itself in that position to be one of the most liberal economies and countries in the world. But even America exists with a lot of boundaries. I live within boundaries, within boundaries, within boundaries, within boundaries. The question is that these people who have these strong opinions, they talk about they're talking about how passionate they are about two people that were put before them. And somebody said, choose between these two choices. And they're passionate about this, even though they didn't pick either person. They do not understand the boundaries. And they never ask the question, who are the boundary setters? And what we do here, especially with geopolitics, is we lay out the field of play. We say, this is the world we live in. This is the statistics. It's a round ball, roughly speaking. 8 billion people, roughly speaking. 200 countries in independent and sovereign nations, roughly speaking. And resources and technology. How do you want to play this? That's what we try to do in geopolitics. I'm citing precedent here. I'm saying, okay, you may not be able to do this over there, but you can do this over here. And if you compare that, right, take doing X over here and Y over there, you have just basically mitigated the controls of your boundary. This is why America does great. One of the largest stock exchanges in the world is Switzerland. Nobody ever talks. And I can't wait to do an interview on this because most stock exchanges are bound by the people and the corporations within their countries. Now you do have multinationals, of course. You have UK with their, and you have the United States. Now UK, they had a bunch of colonies, so of course they have companies all over the world. America, the most richest, powerful country in the world, of course they have companies all over the world. But Switzerland didn't have colonies. How did Switzerland get these massive companies that primarily exist outside of, excluding operational and central management, exist outside of Switzerland? And this has made Switzerland immensely wealthy. Immensely wealthy. And considering the fact that Switzerland isn't refining like India, since Switzerland isn't producing like Angola with oil or Zambia with copper, but Switzerland has a hand on all of these things. Switzerland has mastered the border rules. Now, bring that back to geopolitics and bringing us back to the ignorance of these people. Because the second debate, the first being about exploration, that second debate is about like items. If a person, once you've set on your journey, then it's okay. Then I can start to debate with people of like minds, people of similar opinion, because I know we're going to the same destination. So there can be a best road taken to get there. But, and I'm saying this a lot to save you guys time. If you're already on your journey and you're happy at where you at and where you're trying to go to, don't engage in frivolous conversations with people that are completely divergent of your mindset, of your logic. Of course, they're not going to be a Trumper because they don't, and I really don't like that term, but of course they're not going to be a supporter of Trump because they don't see the establishment as a control mechanism. So they think it's all about government protecting their freedoms, which is like self-contradiction in a way. How can someone else protect your freedoms? They're really protecting your privileges. And conversely, Trump supporters, I can also argue that they're not the most freedom-loving or independent. They're selecting a guy because they clearly have defined boundaries. They clearly see the United States as a distinct organism on this planet with borders and best practices and culture and religions that they assign to this landmass arbitrarily carved out through documentation and wars, documentation via wars, and documentation via political discourse. But both sides are more similar than they give each other credit for. They're just saying my dictator is better. And I don't want to use that term dictator. They want to say that my nominated leader is better. So before you criticize or engage in frivolous debate, ask yourself, is it really worth your time? Because what happened is, of course, I can go back and forth with these people. But if I'm trying to get to a different destination, everything I'm saying to them is abhorrent. Because once they remove my first logic of layer, the underlying logic of layer behind that, underlying layer of logic under that, they're going to disagree with just as much or more vehemently. And then when you remove that and we discuss that layer of logic, the one underlying in that is going to be just as much abhorrent to them. And likewise, I feel the same way about their way of thought. So I'm not looking for converts because that's not at the stage of the journey I am. What I do is say, this is what I believe, this is the direction I'm going, let me drop you some gems, like others dropped me gems that I were able to pick up and improve my journey. I was able to put those pebbles on my road and continue to build my road and get to a place more quickly, more efficiently, and more effectively. And so I think always have that in your mindset of, okay, what are you really trying to accomplish? Because it's not so much about the debate. It's really about that underlying layer of logic. And you get to a certain point where you have this fundamental core belief, this fundamental core base. for a Trump supporter, that fundamental core base really is their identity of what it means to be an American. And they hold true to that. And they say, this is what it looks like to be an American. This is what an American is. And this is what they're fighting for. And then for the other side, they have their underlying layer of logic, which they have. Because I think a lot of people, especially Democrats, they advocate for all these rights and freedom and equality, but what really attracts them to the Democratic Party is the subsidies. They want the subsidies. They want the subsidized lifestyle. They want government to pay for it, which is also a self-contradiction. So, but they want free stuff. They believe in the free lunch. So you have to look at these two different sides of the coin and see their similarities and distinctions. But I think lastly, I think me being American and me being an African American, or American of African descent, I am uniquely blessed to understand what America has offered. Some of the blessings America has brought the world and America in itself, as well as some of the pains and angst and suffering that America has brought the world in itself as well. And I strongly believe that when I meet other African Americans, when I talk, I always tell them we need to be the greatest advocates. If you was to ask me historically who was the greatest advocate for freedom, you'd probably say the British Empire and the late, you could say 19th and early 20th centuries, but you can definitely say they led the forefront as far as the ability to impose a lot of pain, but they tried to change it to impose or level a doctrine of freedom in the world. So they based that on ideological thought throughout the 18th century, etc. But I really believe it should be African Americans as well making those arguments now in the 21st century about what freedom is, what it represents to the individual, because so much have been stripped from us in Africa and in America. And I think that understanding and our unique position to be able to advocate that, because we have been both punished and blessed by the world's most powerful country and the wealthiest nation in the history of the planet. I think we have a unique insight on that if we choose to use it. But said a lot. Go ahead and leave your comments below. I'd like to hear what you think. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.